I remember the day it all started, or at least the day I stopped pretending it hadn't. It was an ordinary Tuesday, if such a thing still exists. I was in my office, the familiar scent of old books and freshly brewed coffee usually a comfort. But that morning, even that felt off. I was reviewing patient files, something I'd done hundreds of times before. But there was something nagging at me, a pattern, subtle at first, then less so. Sleep disorders, anxiety spikes, a general unease. My screen wasn't just showing numbers, it was showing a trend that had begun to bend out of shape. The numbers for reported depression cases had shot up, and under symptoms, the word nightmares was appearing with disturbing consistency. I clicked open Mrs. Miller's file. Sweet Mrs. Miller, 67, a widow, usually worried about her rose garden. Her last session notes, scrawled in my own hurried hand, read, "Patient reports recurring dream of a massive, solid black structure, unable to fully perceive it." I remember her trying to explain, her hands fluttering, saying it was like looking at something that shouldn't be there. I'd nodded, offered some soothing words about stress, perhaps recalling an old trauma. Mrs. Miller had always had a vivid imagination. Then I navigated to Mark, a young university student. Usually so grounded, so practical. His notes were starker. Repeated night terrors, overwhelming sense of an impossible geometric mass dominating vision, always a faint humming sound. I leaned back in my chair. My office, my sanctuary, suddenly felt smaller. My logical brain kicked in. It's probably mass hysteria, I told myself, a collective stress response. Or maybe some viral sensation, perhaps a new show everyone's watching, even if I haven't heard about it. I actually laughed, a short, dry sound that didn't help. I shook my head, my own personal reassurance. No, this is normal. People's repressed emotions. Shared imagery, that's all. Absolutely normal. But later that morning, as I walked through the public garden on my way home, something shifted. The red roses, so vibrant just yesterday, were subtly altered. Not dying, not wilted, but the deep crimson had faded, becoming a dull, muted gray. Like the color had simply been siphoned out. I stopped, staring. It wasn't dirt, it wasn't the light. It was just gone. A quiet kind of gone. I walked faster, telling myself the light was playing tricks on my eyes. I needed coffee. Maybe that was it. I stopped at the corner convenience store, the one with the perpetually flickering neon sign. The young cashier, a familiar face I'd seen almost every day for months, was behind the counter. But his eyes, they were just empty. Staring straight ahead, past me, into nothing. He didn't acknowledge me, didn't even blink when I put the bottle of water on the counter. My skin prickled. He's just having a bad day, I reasoned. We all have those. I handed him the money. He just took it, slowly, his fingers brushing mine. They were cold, unnaturally so. And then I heard it. A whisper, so soft I almost missed it. "Meaningless," he mumbled. "Nothing. All just nothing." His head tilted then, slowly, toward me, then past my shoulder to the glass front of the store. Like he wasn't really seeing me, but something beyond. And the hum, it started again, inside my head. Not like a buzzing, not like an external sound. It was deep, a vibration that felt like it resonated in my bones, like a tuning fork struck directly against my skull. My heart hammered against my ribs. I grabbed the water, practically throwing the money on the counter. I just needed to get out.
The brisk walk home didn't help. The hum didn't stop. It was a constant thrum, a silent scream that wasn't silent at all. All these things, the hum, the patience, the gray roses, and now this cashier, they were all starting to connect. It wasn't paranoia. It was a chain of horrible truths being laid bare. That night, I woke up feeling exhausted, as if I hadn't slept at all. I stumbled into the bathroom, turned on the faucet. While I waited for the water to warm, I looked into the mirror. And then I blinked. And as I blinked, the reflection in the mirror didn't. Its eyes, my eyes, remained wide open, staring back at me. There was a faint curiosity there, a hint of something else. Then I opened my own eyes, shaking my head. The reflection blinked then, perfectly in sync. I breathed out a long, dry sigh.
Just lack of sleep, or a smudge on the glass. Yes, that's all it is. I went to the kitchen, needing coffee. The refrigerator hummed, the coffee grinder whirred. But under those familiar sounds, I heard it again. That low, subsonic hum. It felt less like a sound and more like a pressure, an invasive presence in my head. I put my hands to my ears, but it didn't lessen. It came from inside. Something's just off, okay? I muttered to myself. Nothing special. Nobody cares. Just let it be. I ended up in the living room, trying to distract myself with the evening news. The anchorman's voice droned on about a worrying increase in unusual suicides across major cities. Victims found with wide, vacant eyes, staring up at the night sky. My spine went cold. Just as they cut to a professor struggling to explain the phenomenon, the anchorman's voice distorted, like static, like someone was trying to talk through a thick, deep-sea cable. The TV screen flickered, and for one terrifying second, a still image flashed. It was a sprawling, incomprehensible black construct. Sharp, impossible angles. Lines that seemed to defy geometry. Twisting as if challenging the very fabric of existence. Then, just as suddenly, it vanished. The news report was back, perfectly normal. I jolted, breathless. It wasn't a glitch, not just static, not a trick of my tired eyes. And then I heard Toby, my gentle Labrador, whining at my feet. He was shivering, his lips pulled back in a silent snarl toward the TV screen. His eyes, usually so soft, were wide with an undisguised dread. He didn't bark, just emitted a low, quivering growl. My own fear bloomed in my chest. No, I thought, my voice thin and reedy even in my head. It can't be. Just a coincidence. Bad signal. That's all it is. This is all just a coincidence. I reached out, my hand trembling, and pressed the power button. The screen went black. I got up, walked to the window, and pulled back the curtains. And there it was. Hanging in the night sky, among the familiar pinpricks of stars, a faint, crescent-shaped shadow. The stillness. I had heard a few scientists on niche channels mention it, a new astronomical phenomenon, a minor curiosity. But now, looking at it, the hum in my skull intensified. It was like that black mass was talking to my mind directly. No words, just a crushing, overwhelming sense of absolute nothing. I pressed my hands harder against my ears, trying to block out that internal sound. It wasn't coming from outside. It was then it clicked, a horrifying realization that threatened to unhinge something vital within me. The hum, the strange images, the suicides, and now that thing in the sky. It wasn't a dead planet. It was broadcasting something. Something awful. My phone buzzed in my hand.
A message from a former patient, Lydia. "Dr. Reed, do you see it? It's watching us." Attached was a blurry photo of the night sky, the stillness visible, a dark smudge against the stars. But it wasn't just the stillness in the picture. On my phone screen, where a small crack had been there for weeks, I noticed it was changing. The lines of the tiny fracture seemed to be lengthening, spreading, and their pattern, sharp and jagged, was too similar to the lines I'd glimpsed on the stillness only moments ago. The crack was growing, right there, on my phone. I stumbled back into my house, the front door slamming shut behind me. I flicked on the living room light. The familiar, warm yellow glow that usually filled the space, the one I had picked out specifically to make the room feel cozy, instantly shifted to a lurid, cold blue. It made everything seem sharp, alien, like all the comfort had been drained away. My heart was pounding. I practically ran to my study, needing to be surrounded by my books, my work, the things I understood. The moonlight streamed through the window, but it didn't illuminate the room. It seemed to leach what little light there was, making the corners darker, more oppressive. I dropped into my chair, my mind racing. I pushed my half-empty coffee mug aside and opened my laptop. The screen lit up on its own. Not to my browser, not to my work documents. It was playing a short video clip. A blurry, grainy image. And in it was me, sleeping, on the very couch I'd just left. But the eyes in the video, my eyes, they were the color of coal. Dark, sunken. And there were no eyelids. They were just open. Always open. A chilling breath seemed to waft from the screen.
A bone-deep cold seeped from the image, up my fingertips, into my hand. The hum in my skull exploded then, a deep, agonizing throb, so intense I thought my head might simply split open. And then a thought. It wasn't a sound, not a voice, but a raw, unfiltered concept slammed directly into my mind. No language, no discernible words. But the meaning was clear, brutally, terrifyingly clear. This house is listening. I slammed the laptop shut, the sudden darkness a temporary mercy. I was gasping, trying to pull air into my lungs, but it felt thin, inadequate. I looked around my study, my sanctuary, the place I felt safest. My gaze fell on my favorite notebook. Blue leather, my personal journal for every theory, every observation, every attempt to make sense of this fracturing world. I reached for it. The leather cover, usually a smooth, comforting texture, felt wrong. And then I saw it. The faint, subtle grain of the leather, usually just random patterns, had begun to twist, to coalesce, to form a shape, a symbol, one I couldn't understand, but one I recognized. I had seen it in those patient dreams. I had seen it flash on the TV screen. A harsh, impossible geometry, an alien glyph. It was etched into the very cover of the book I used to fight it all. My hands shook as I opened the notebook. I turned to the first page. The words I'd scrawled yesterday, cosmic tumor, were gone. In their place, scratched in a language that wasn't human, in wild, dark scrawls I knew I hadn't made, was a new message. And beneath it, scrawled clearly, was my own signature. I wake up, or at least I think I did. The hum was still there, a low thrumming behind my eyes, deep in my skull, like a constant pressure. Every sound, every little rustle of my sheets felt magnified, then dulled by that intrusive drone. I tried to call Sarah, my sister.
My hand was shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone twice. It rang for a long time, then she picked up. "Evelyn?" she said, her voice a little too bright. "What's up? Everything okay?" "Yeah, I just wanted to check in," I told her, trying to keep my own voice steady. "How are things? Work?" She launched into a story about her new project, something about marketing strategies, a world that suddenly felt impossibly far away. I listened, tried to focus, but the hum in my head made it hard. And then it happened. Right in the middle of a sentence about quarterly projections, Sarah just stopped. A tiny, almost imperceptible pause. A fraction of a second, really. But it wasn't a breath, not a natural break in speech. It was like a tape skipping, or a piece of buffering software freezing for a millisecond. Then she started again, exactly where she'd left off, her voice perfectly normal. "So, yeah, it's been a lot, you know." "You okay, Sarah?" I asked, a tightness in my chest. "You just paused there." She chuckled, a light, airy sound that didn't quite reach her voice. "Me? I'm fine. Just maybe my voice is a bit off today, I guess." I frowned into the receiver. There was something not right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. My logical brain, the last stubborn part of me clinging to professional sanity, tried to explain it away. "Probably just a bad signal," I mumbled to myself, hoping I sounded convincing. "A little glitch, or maybe she's tired, a lot like I am." The receiver felt cold in my hand. That uneasy feeling, though, it settled deep in my gut, clinging there like something oily. The next morning, I forced myself to go into the clinic. Had to. I had patience. I had to continue some semblance of normal. I walked through the small public park on my way, the same one where I'd seen those gray roses. Those roses. I hadn't looked at them since, actually. I didn't want to. A young parent was pushing their child on one of the swings. The kid was laughing, a pure, innocent sound, as they soared higher and higher. It was a good sound, a human sound. But then, as the child reached the peak of the swing, letting out a joyful shriek, that laugh, it repeated. Slower, distorted, almost like the sound was coming from a broken speaker, echoing unnaturally. A glitch in the audio of the world. My stomach clenched. I kept walking, faster now, my eyes fixed on the path ahead. Inside the hospital, it was different. Not outright chaos, but a simmering undercurrent. Doctors and nurses moved with a strange urgency, their faces drawn. Most didn't make eye contact.